See the daring American mission to Malaya tonight on ABC.
And if you want someone to count on me.
20 seconds. 15 seconds. 10 seconds.
We're going to recap it.
5.
The money board. We're going to be on camera, so we're back again, ladies and gentlemen, at the Bolorama in Akron, Ohio. And Billy Waylew, after one game in this two-game head-to-head final match, a lot of people probably think that a 27-pin lead that Billy Hardwick now has over Dick Weber and a 32-pin lead over Joe Joseph would be insurmountable with one game left.
Chris, on the contrary, in the bowling game, should a player open and his opponent make a triple, that would make up a 30-pin difference, so it can very quickly change situations.
Billy, you've done a great job this year on Pro Bowlers Tour, experting for us, and let's take a look at the lines, the score sheet, and perhaps you'd analyze just what happened for us.
Well, Dick Weber got out of the very box very strongly, as did Billy Hardwick. Dick Weber made a very costly shot in the 7th frame when he counted only 5. He seemed to rear at the line and didn't get through the shot as he would like to. Billy Hardwick had very tough luck. He was tapped in the 6th frame. He was tapped in the 9th frame. He made every shot near perfect in the game.
Tremendous look at those scores, ladies and gentlemen. 258, 231, and 226. And all this at the end of a $100,000 bowling tournament, the first ever in this great participation sport that ends our 13-city stop on ABC television. But I'm very happy to say, Billy, that we'll be back on ABC television next year with the very same type of exciting action covering the skills of a great group of guys.
Well, Chris, it's really been a pleasure working with you, and I'm looking forward to next year.
Okay. Well, you know, 43 started here, and the list of the finishers is very interesting. And, of course, the list of money winners in professional bowling astounds a few people when they compare it with some of the other professional sports. So let's take a look at a few statistics here if we have an opportunity. First of all, just how they finished after 48 games.
There you can see that Dick Weber, who led from start to finish, he led to qualifying, and he also led at the end of the match game play. Billy Hardwick, Joe Joseph, the alternate Ray R., and Bill Allen, who had very tough luck. He lost 2 games by 1 pin each. And Marty Perrino, the left-hander from Syracuse.
Then Billy G., the colorful bowler from Detroit, followed by Dick Downey, and then grandfather Buzz Fazio. Earl Johnson, consistent bowler, was followed by Tom Hennessy. And another great champion, Ray Bluth, as is Andy Marsich. And at number 14 position, our friend Billy Waylew.
Thank you, Chris. Carmen Salvino, who snuck out here for the Actors Award. Dave Sutar, Dennis Chapas, Don Johnson from Kokomo, Indiana. Norm Myers.
And then Mike Limongello, the youngster from Long Island, with the veteran Jim St. John and Pete Tontis.
And there you see in 23rd spot our alternate who snuck in, and I have to give credit to Ed Lubansky here, who had to withdraw from a bad back. Glenn came in and made his first game a 258. And last but certainly not least, Vern Downey.
Well, friends, you know, ABC television is constantly on the look for great moments, great events in sports. And a little bit earlier, we told you that we were going to show you Texas A&M sophomore Randy Matson's assault on Dallas Long's shot put record. Now, this all happened in the quadrangular track meet last night at College Station in Texas at Texas A&M. So, from College Station, Texas, here's our ABC Sports coverage of Randy Matson going for the world's record in the shot put. Randy Matson, here he is, his final try in 6 attempts. The old record, 67 feet 10 inches, held by Dallas Long. Tremendous coordination and power. And it is out there. Now you see the track and field officials moving out. And word has gotten out at College Station, Texas, that Randy Matson, a sophomore at Texas A&M, has bettered Dallas Long's record by 1.25 inches. Randy Matson just last night setting a world's record, a new record, of 67 feet, 11 1/4 inches. Billy, that takes a lot of muscle.
Beautiful coordination.
It certainly does. And you know, we have one more game to go to decide who will get the $25,000 winner's check here at the Bowl-O-Rama. While we're waiting for the start of the last game of today's final round, we'll be back in just a moment with the highlights of today's first game on videotape. There you see part of the crowd. Thousands here at the Bowl-O-Rama, awaiting the start of the final game. In the first game, Bill Hardwick emerged the leader by 27 pins over Dick Weber, having bowled a 258 to Weber's 231 and to Joe Joseph's 226. We have some videotape highlights of the first couple of frames, which we'll show you if you joined us late, and I know you'd like to see it again, just how great these bowlers started here in the biggest bowling tournament ever. And Billy, I know that you can analyze their firm and sound styles right from the beginning of the match. Here is Weber. This is a crowd that awaits the start of the second game. Of course, the bowlers, in the case of the bigness of this tournament, are given an opportunity to warm up. And while they are warming up for the second game, here are the videotape highlights, the first couple of frames. Dick Weber and Bill Hardwick, who started out each with a double. Joe Joseph came in with a strike in the first frame, followed by a spare. We're having a few technical problems here in Akron, Ohio, with our videotape replay. But as the perspiration really comes out on the three bowlers, some of it could be attributed to television lights, Billy, but I think most of it is from pressure.
Well, it certainly can. As far as the lights are concerned, Chris, it's very warm down on the lanes. It's spring weather here in Akron, and the lights, I would imagine it's about 90 to 95 degrees down there, maybe even 100 down on the pair.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the pressure of $25,000 to the winner, and actually a difference of $6,000 between second and third, this places great pressure and emphasis upon each shot.
Joe Joseph contemplating, while Bill Hardwick and Dick Weber. Here is Bill Hardwick getting a strike in that first game. In fact, he got 5 in a row, Billy Whalen.
It was very amazing, Chris, with the pressure and the money involved, how very strongly they got out of the gate.
They really did. And, of course, Joe Joseph was the man that opened with a strike, then marked with a spare, came back with 2 strikes, a couple of spares, and then 3 more strikes and a spare. Let's watch him, the smooth Detroit bowler. That's the way Joe opened the first game.
He really keyed very strongly on lane 23. He had a little trouble on lane 24. Lane 24 seems to be hooking a bit more than 23. He pulled a couple in his effort to delay the roll and went high, which cost him very dearly.
Billy Hardwick, 22 years old, from San Mateo, California, watching the 46-year-old Joe Joseph and Weber. And as you see, he left the 4-pin. And that put him right in somewhat of a hole early in that first game, because then Weber and Hardwick went on to roll 5 in a row.
When you get a start like that, of course, it places great pressure in a short match. 2 games, of course. It's very costly when you don't get off to a good lead, because you're not only behind in pinfall, but you know there's extra pressure on you.
We'd like to point out that today it's a 2-game final match, ladies and gentlemen. And, of course, in the lead is Bill Hardwick by 27 pins over Weber and 32 pins over Joe Joseph. And it takes a little bit of figuring, but it's total pinfall. And speaking of figuring, champion Glenn Allison, who's helped us all year long, is once again keeping statistics, and we would like to thank him for not only today, but the entire year. Let's move on to later stages of that first game. And Bill Hardwick, by striking out in that 10th frame, rolled a 258. And our videotape highlights will be showing you just how he did it. Meanwhile, the bowlers continue to warm up.
That's very important, Chris, to keep your timing and keep your tempo and keep that stroke in between to get the practice rounds in.
Here are the bowlers warming up. That is Joe Joseph on lane 24. Bill Hardwick moves over in the approach, using about all of it. He's staring down a pin that failed to go, the 6 pin. Here are the first game scores. Weber with a 231, Hardwick with a 258, and Joe Joseph with a 226. A city that stages many championships which include the Soapbox Derby, Billy, the American Golf Classic, which ABC later on this year will be televising, will be one of several golf tournaments, like the great PGA Championship from Arnold Palmer's course, Laurel Valley in Pennsylvania, and the Tournament of Champions, May 1st and 2nd, from the Desert Inn in Las Vegas. And, of course, our hosts here, the people that have been helping to bring bowling your way all year, the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company, have been just about as active as anybody in making the Indianapolis 500 the great sports classic that it is. And as the bowlers warm up, it's a pleasure to have here today the chairman of the board of the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company, Mr. Harvey Firestone, Jr., chairman of the executive committee, Mr. Raymond Firestone, Mr. Earl Hathaway, president of the company. They're joined by their wives here, and they're having the time of their lives, too, as thousands of others are here at the Bowlerama. Now let's look at Billy Hardwick in the 9th and 10th frames of the first game. This was big bowling on his part. It takes a lot of time, Billy.
Yes, he does. With this kind of money, he wants to make sure each shot is near perfect. There was a tough break for Billy Hardwick as that 6-pin sailed right around the 10.
And as Glenn Allison pointed out on our statistics sheet, a solid 10. That was in the 9th frame of the first game.
Glenn's pretty cagey, Chris. When he's light, he calls it a salad 10. Nice conversion here. A lot of the people were a little worried. However, the lanes are hooking evenly from one gutter to the other, and his ball rolled back very strongly.
Okay, Billy Whaley, we'll be back here at Bowlerama in Akron right after this message. The bowlers are still warming up for that second and final game with $25,000 at stake for the winner, $12,500 for second with $6,500 for third. You know, last week, ABC Sports' Bob Rieger, artist and fine reporter, was in Hartford, Connecticut. As you recall, we did our PBA tournament from there. He wanted to see last year's leading money winner, Billy Allen, who won his second PBA tournament in a row. And Bob was using his exciting dual-action camera. And now he produced this remarkable and unprecedented study of a top bowler's style and technique.
Thank you, Chris. As our dual-action camera starts, we're close up on Bill Allen's hands. Bill, come in and tell us something about your grip and the ball.
I use a ball where the fingers and thumb fit fairly tight, so I have no room for grips. I use the glove to fill in the space in the palm of my hand, so the pad in the glove fills this up and keeps the ball from rocking in your hand, especially in your backswing, so you have a more consistent grip throughout your entire swing. Now, at the trigger point of the approach, you have to start the ball and your foot moving at the same time, which is your push away. And then as you go into your second step, the ball comes to the bottom of your backswing.
This is a very interesting thing to me, Bill, because I don't know too much about bowling, but I certainly found this to be a revelation that when you bring the ball back on your backswing to its highest point, your hand is actually underneath the ball.
Right, Bob, I didn't even know that. Now there's the release. Notice how close to the channel the ball is. Because of the fact there's no track, this is one reason why you find most all left-handers playing so close to the channel. Now on my second approach, if you'll notice, my left foot is turned outward. This is in preparation for the pushing into my fourth step where I slide and release the ball. In fact, until I saw these pictures, I didn't really know that I had my foot turned that much. Now watch my right foot on the final step as I slide to the line for the delivery. My toe is pointed straight ahead. The weight of my body is evenly distributed on this one foot. Looking at the diagram, you will see 7 arrows, with the extreme outside arrows being closest to you at the line. They start at 12 feet, with the center arrow being 16 feet away. These arrows are built into the lanes by the manufacturers as an aid to beginners to make the game easier for them. So these are used as targets. I may use the last arrow at the extreme left and have my ball go straight down or into the pocket in one direction, constantly going toward the pocket. Where on the right side, because of the track, which dictates to a bowler where he has to play the lane, he may play in to the second arrow or even in as far as the third arrow and have a slight belly to his ball, where we'll go out and back into the pocket in many cases. This way, his ball may at times lose part of its effectiveness because of the fact it has to cross the boards twice. Naturally, the reason for the track is because of the fact there's so many more right-handed bowlers than there are left-handers.
Right here, Bill, let's number the pins for the viewers. The head pin is number 1. Then in the second row, it's 2 and 3. Then 4, 5, and 6. And in the back, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now the pocket changes naturally for a left-hander and a right-hander. Here, the arrow shows the pocket for a left-hander, right at this point. For the right-hander, it's here. All right, Bill, here it is from the side. You get set, start your approach, first 2 steps. And now with our ABC exclusive dual-action camera, we'll stop it at this point as you're about to go into your 3rd step, and you describe the Bill Allen style.
Bob, if you'll notice, as I go into my 3rd step, this is at the point where the ball is at its highest point in the backswing. Then you start down with the ball, using your 3rd step to push into the 4th, go into the slide, and then the delivery.
Of course, in this picture right here, you can see that all your timing is just perfection. Your left arm and your right leg are right even with each other.
Right, Bob. This is at the point where I'm just going into my slide, my left leg up behind me to maintain balance, and of course the delivery and the follow-through.
I was very interested in precisely how your fingers work on the release of the ball. And with our remarkable electronic flash, it was actually firing at 15 millionths of a second. Let's look very closely now as we come in with our camera and see your fingers actually releasing the ball.
Now you've caught it right on my fingertips, Bob. This is what we call coordination or timing in bowling, which you have to have. From the time you start to the time you get to the line, your arm and your leg have to work exactly so that the ball and your right foot will get to the line at the same time. Bob, if you notice here, the ball is coming into the 1-2 pocket. The ball takes out the 1, the 2 pin, and goes on through and takes the 5 pin. And then in sequence, each pin takes out each other pin. So I think there's a theory that the ball only gets 3 pins, and all other pins knock each other down.
Can we say, just a basic rule, that velocity and the pocket hit are the 2 things that control the strike?
Right, Bob. The pocket hit, most important. The velocity will tend to get the pins moving at the right speed to deflect and get each other as they're supposed to.
Now let's come back and stop the ball and talk about the moment of impact. Supposing the ball, in your case, is a little to the right, a little higher, what happens then?
Well, Bob, if it's too high, you have a very good chance of getting a split.
So supposing it's too far to the left, but still touches it.
In this case, the head pin will deflect in front of the 3 pin, sometimes leaving the 3, 5, 6, 9.
Well, the reason you call it light, then, is because when it kicks that head pin out, the number 1 pin out, the number 1 pin goes in front of the other pin.
Right. This is what we call a solid pocket hit. With the right velocity and the perfect hit as this is, each pin will react properly to get what we call a picture strike.
Well, this is fascinating, Bill, and many thanks.
ABC sports artist reporter Bob Rieger's worked with a bowler, the ball, and the pins. Billy, it's snug as a bug. There's a seat in the house left as we have standing room only, and we'll be back in just a minute with the final game of the $100,000 Tournament of Champions.
help and tips and come in. Look forward to next game.
15 seconds. 10 seconds. 5, 4.
This is it. The final game. Dick Weber is trailing Bill Hardwick after one game by 27 pins. Weber rolled a 231 to Hardwick's 258. The second and final game. Dick Weber started the first game with 5 in a row, and he started the second and final game with a big powerhouse strike.
In the first game, Chris, they started on lane 23, finished on lane 24. Now, in this, the second game, they start on lane 24 and finish on lane 23.
Okay. Dick Weber going for a double. And he has it. Lola Albright, joined by Jerry Donovan, AMF Vice President, enjoying the work of Weber, and now they'll watch Bill Hardwick. And the leader, Bill Hardwick, after one game. Bill bowled a 258 in the first game to lead Weber by 27 and Joseph by 32 pins. Going into this second game, has opened with a strike.
To retain his 27-pin lead, he needs a strike on this ball. If he does not strike, Weber will have reduced his lead to 17.
He slipped at the line. Bill really had trouble at the line, sticking and almost rolling over it, leaving the 10-pin. Dick Weber looking on.
Naturally, sticking at the line like that with his body up in the air, he couldn't get the good leverage and the lift that would require that ball to finish for him, so he left the 10.
So here is Bill Hardwick with a little bit of a tough break going into this second game.
With Joe Joseph bowling, Billy Hardwick is now leading Weber by 17 pins.
And this being Joseph's first frame in the second game, he has left the 3, 6, and 10. A real championship. And speaking of championships, Billy, Bob Cousy and I invite all of you to join us tomorrow afternoon, 2 p.m., 1 p.m. Central Time, from Boston Garden for Philadelphia, Boston. It's the 5th game of the best-of-7 series to decide the Eastern champion in the NBA. A series of 2 games apiece.
You're looking forward to watching that game. Oh!
And Joe Joseph has opened in the first frame. There's a tremendously bad break for Joseph, who chopped a 3 and 6 off the 10.
With that open in the first, Chris, Joe Joseph is now 43 pins behind the leader, Billy Hardwick.
In the first 24 shots in the first game, we had 17 strikes, and this is our first open frame. And it just slid by, leaving the 2 and the 5 for the 46-year-old professional from Michigan.
Chris, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate you on winning the Sportscaster of the Year award for the 2nd consecutive year, which is really fabulous.
Well, thank you very much. I'd have to thank all of my colleagues who did the voting and the sports writers all across America and the fine people of Salisbury, North Carolina. And Joe Joseph has marked with a spare after opening in the first frame, coming through with a spare in the second. And now here is Dick Weber, who has a double and is trailing Hardwick by only 17 pins now. Joseph is down 43 pins.
If he can strike here, he'll reduce it to 7.
And here is our first split. Mrs. Weber. Pressure telling here in the second game.
Many times on that hit, Chris, Dick Weber will trip out the 4 and the 9. He didn't have as much speed on that ball as he has had on his previous shots on that lane, so he didn't get the setting action. He's going for it.
Hey! Dick Weber has converted a 4-9 split, and listen to the applause. Wow. Dick Weber converting the 4-9. Great champion.
Just a fabulous player, Chris.
And bounces back for the strike.
Undoubtedly, that will charge him up very much.
Mrs. Weber is as keyed up as her husband. Bill Hardwick now. Effective pin action on the part of a rolling Billy Hardwick bowling ball.
Hit him thin and watch him spin.
Billy, any songs this week?
The song this week, Chris, has been the Firestone song, Where the Rubber Meets the Road.
Joe Joseph. Bill Hardwick. Got in trouble at the line. But he hits some strikes. Oh, what a final game. Here's the man that's in the third spot, Joe Joseph. Final game.
Hardwick takes a 29-pin lead over Weber with that double, Chris.
And Joe Joseph comes up with his first strike in this final game. 25,000 in the winner, 12,500 second, 6,500 for third. In other words, there's a difference of $18,500 in finishing first or third. There are the two men waiting. Joe Joseph on the approach, using very little of it. A 10-pin. He's trailing now by about 53 pins. Immediately following this Tournament of Champions on ABC's Wide World of Sports. Great events. National AAU Swimming and Diving Championships, a view of the Astrodome in Houston, and the ascent of Mount Kennedy as Mr. Harvey Firestone, Jr., chairman of the board, looks on. A wonderful gentleman. And his company, the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company, have long been interested in sports of all kinds. Auto racing, bowling, and golf. So on down the line. As we look at that score sheet, it is Hardwick still in the lead with Weber second and Joseph third. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the final game of the $100,000 Tournament of Champions. Back again at the Bolorama, Akron, Ohio, scene of the $100,000 Tournament of Champions. After 48 games, 3 bowlers have gone head-to-head now for about a game and a half in a 2-game final. Weber is trailing Billy Hardwick by 29 pins. Weber is now shooting in the 5th frame.
Here's a valuable strike up. Can he make a double?
Billy, our double exposure camera. What pin action on that shot?
He's using great speed today, great lift, which gives the ball a very powerful driving effect.
Hardwick in the first game rolled a 258. Weber a 231. Now looking for 3 in a row.
He applies the pressure.
A 10-pin on lane 23.
Getting that double, then losing 1 pin on the count, leaving the 10. He trails by 20 pins. Billy Hardwick, the leader.
Weber now, cross lane shot for the 10-pin. Sparemaker showing you how it can be covered. All right. Now Dick Weber can rest a few moments. while Bill Hardwick goes to work. He's working on a double, incidentally, leading by 20 pins. Final game. A three-bagger. Bill Hardwick of San Mateo, California, 22 years old. 6-footer, 155 pounds. Bowler of the Year in 1963.
And Chris, if the youth of America aspires to be a great champion like Billy Hardwick, there's great news. The AMF All-America Youth Bowling Program will start April 15th.
And a youth named Bill Hardwick has 4 in a row, applying the pressure in this final game. There's a difference of 12,500 in winning or finishing second. There's the leader, Bill Hardwick.
And he's leading by 40 pins, Chris, over Dick Weber.
Joe Joseph leaving a 10-pin on lane 24. He is trailing Bill Hardwick by 64 pins. You know, next Saturday, it's Major League Championship Baseball on ABC. 3 big games. The Giants play the Mets at Shea Stadium. The Red Sox host the Baltimore Orioles, and the Cubs meet the Braves in Milwaukee. Check your local listings for the time of the game in your area with no blackouts.
That was a tough break there for Joe, Chris. He needed to strike out to maintain a position in the running. There you see it. Joe Joseph, 68 in the fourth. Billy Hardwick, 100 in the fourth. Dick Weber, 97 in the fourth.
Here's Joseph. Whoever finishes third gets $6,500.
Joe has seemed to make the adjustment for lane 24, but now he's missing lane 23.
Speaking of missing, don't miss today's Wide World of Sports immediately following this telecast. It'll be the ascent of Mount Kennedy, the National AAU Swimming and Diving Championships, and an interesting story and coverage of the Astrodome Baseball, Houston. Now here is Dick Weber, who is trailing by 40 pins as Bill Hardwick is in the lead. As you see, Weber is working on the spare in the 6th, shooting in the 7th. Important that he strike.
We're in the home stretch, Chris. Dick Weber strikes in the 7th frame, trying to cut down Billy Hardwick's lead. Hardwick is leading by 40 pins.
I wonder what Dick's thinking right now.
I'm sure he's thinking about striking in the 8th frame, which would reduce the lead to 30, but more important, put great pressure on Hardwick. Doesn't get the good lift.
And he has left the 2-4 on lane 23. Hardwick looking at the overhead score sheets.
That was a big ball for Weber, Chris.
Mr. Harvey Firestone and his daughter checking the action, going for the 2-4 and a sleeper 8. Now here is Bill Hardwick, who has 4 strikes in a row. He opened with a strike, made a spare, the second, and then has struck. Leaving the 4-pin on lane 24.
No trouble there, Chris. The boys hitting the pocket like that. The 4-pin is not a difficult spare. He will move to the right. Unless he should stick at the line and pull the ball, it should be an easy cover.
These consistent professionals, members of the PBA, started by a group of professionals, and of course, one of the really great promotions and engineering things done by Eddie Elias, the executive director. 39-pin lead by Hardwick. A big strike coming in the 8th frame. It's Hardwick in the lead. Weber is running second, and Joe Joseph is third. And Joe will now shoot. Harvey Firestone Jr., chairman of the board of the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company.
And they hosted us at a wonderful banquet Monday night at the Firestone Country Club, Chris. It was a very fabulous affair.
Joe failed to knock down the 4-pin. This is our 13th stop and final stop on our ABC telecasts of professional bowling. And we can tell you've enjoyed it for the many letters and comments we've received, and we appreciate it. As you see, Joe Joseph trailing by 78 pins.
Had an interesting letter this week, Chris. One of our viewers wanted to know if Nelson Burton ever wore horn-rimmed glasses. Yes, he did. He's now wearing contact lenses.
Yes.
As does Andy Marzick now.
This is the way they finished here in the Tournament of Champions. Weber, Hardwick, and Joseph coming into the finals with the top three with Orff, Allen, Pirano, Billy G, Downey, Fazio, Earl Johnson, Hennessy, Bluth, Marsic, Whaley, Silvino, Sutar, Chapas, Don Johnson, Myers, Lamangello, St. John, Tontis, Allison, and Downing, the first 24. Here is the leading money winner, Dick Weber. Anxious to get the top spot here. Nice smile from the veteran as he finally gets his second strike of the second and final game. As we'll be right back with the balance of today's match. Now into the final stages of the final match as Dick Weber is trailing Bill Hardwick by 39 pins.
Right, Chris. The situation is this. Weber needs a strike in the 9th and 3 in the 10th to force Hardwick to mark in one of his 2 final frames.
There is the strike in the 9th frame, Billy. Would you repeat that?
Right, Chris. Dick Weber got a strike in the 9th, so he now needs 3 strikes in the 10th to force Hardwick to mark in one of his final 2 frames. So Hardwick is sitting pretty comfortable right now.
Yes, he is, as Mrs. Weber watches.
Come on. He's still alive, Chris.
It was Bill Hardwick who struck out in that first game to bowl a 258 to Weber's 231.
And with that strike, Joe Joseph is relegated to 3rd position, regardless of how he finishes.
6,500 for the veteran.
Oh, he needs a roll.
Regardless of where he finishes, first or second, you have been watching the striking ability of Dick Weber, former mail carrier from Indianapolis, Indiana, now bowling out of St. Louis, one of the truly extraordinary bowling champions. What a finish!
Fabulous clutch performance, Chris. Billy Hardwick now needs to mark in either the 9th or the 10th frame. Should he open in both frames, Dick Weber would win.
Right there is the pressure shot. It's a bad shot. The 1, 2, and the 8. 1, 2, 8.
Very valuable break for Billy Hardwick in kicking out the 7 and the 10. Had both of them stood, it would have been a near impossible spare conversion. If either the 7 or the 10 had stood, it would have been a very difficult spare. He needs to cover this.
Billy carefully checking that score sheet, as is Billy Whaley.
Right, Chris. We never like to pose a situation happening like a foul or a gutter ball, but we must allow for it. Billy Hardwick needs some kind of count on this ball. That's it.
Bill Hardwick. San Mateo, California. And as he told you earlier, before this final 2 games, he was so nervous that he had put his shaving lotion on before he shaved.
And I'm sure he had his heart in his hand as that 9th frame.
the 6, 7, and 10. And if you're going to have a split, Billy Wayloo, this is the situation to have it in.
That's the perfect spot to have it, Chris. The crowd knows that he is the winner. The overhead scoring screens across the house tell the capacity audience.
A gutter ball. And Dick Weber congratulates the Tournament of Champion winner and $25,000 richer. Take a look at that. 22 years old. He's just won 25 grand.
For the record, Chris, he has defeated Dick Weber by 16 pins, 484 to 468.
And Joe Joseph, who will finish third at the completion of this game, will have picked up $6,500. And this is the first money that he's earned on the tour. This is only his second tournament of the year as he's busy with his own bowling establishment in Michigan. Now, that $25,000 will put Hardwick's earnings over $30,000. And, of course, Weber will pick up $12,000. Joe Joseph, as we said, picking up his first earnings of 1965 with $6,500. Dick Weber leading on the tour, including his All-Star victory, with $27,840. Today he adds $12,500. And here's Hardwick, who adds $25,000 to the $5,262 he's earned thus far. Leaving the 10-pin. Hardwick bowled a 226, Weber a 237, 178 for Joe Joseph, the man that finished third. We'll be back in just a minute to meet the winner of the $100,000 Tournament of Champions. Get the bowlers out here first and then Ray. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are on the approaches with little time left, but I would like to introduce the man that finished third, the veteran from Michigan, Joe Joseph. Come here quick. We have $6,500 for you. Where are the checks? Oh, here he... Where are the checks? The man from the Mars, the Martian Man, fine actor Ray Walston, right?
Joe, I wish you would accept this, and my congratulations.
Thank you, Ray, very much.
Nice going, Joe.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, now finishing second, the All-Star champion, Dick Weber.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And now the star of stage screen television, and you're going to love this. She's going to present you the check. Lola Albright. Lola?
Thank you very much.
This is a pleasure to give you because you were such a pleasure to watch, really.
Thank you very much.
You're a pleasure to watch, too. Okay, and now to present the trophy to the winner of $25,000, Bill Hardwick. It's gone. We would like to introduce the chairman of the executive committee of the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company, Mr. Raymond C. Firestone.
Billy, it gives me a great deal of pleasure here, and first of all, congratulations on that wonderful bowling this afternoon, but it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present to you the first trophy for the Firestone PBA tournament.
Thank you very much, Mr. Firestone. Thank you.
I want you to take a look at that. You're nervous?
I can even stand here.
$25,000, and Mr. Firestone, thank you for being such a fine host here in Akron, Ohio, and making bowling history. And congratulations, 22-year-old.
Thank you.
Okay, so long. Ladies and gentlemen, that winds up the 1965 Pro Bowlers Tour. 13 great bowling tournaments in 13 wonderful cities across the country. As we complete our fourth year of Pro Bowlers Tour, our thanks go to PBA's Frank Esposito, Chuck Pitt, and Harry Golden, and to bowlers Glenn Allison, Ed Collins, Eddie Patterson, and Johnny Myers for their invaluable assistance during these telecasts. Billy Wayloo and I have really enjoyed covering these exciting tournaments for you in all these cities, and we look forward to being with you again next season when ABC will bring you the 5th year of the Pro Bowlers Tour. And now our thanks to the Professional Bowlers Association and its fine executive director, Eddie Elias, and Bowlerama. Prize monies have been furnished by the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company. A part of the cost of this program was defrayed by AMF. The executive producer of Pro Bowlers Tour is Rune Arledge. Produced by Jim Colligan and directed by Lou Volpicelli. Associate Director Joe Bush. Technical Director Walt Kubelis. Engineering Supervisor Bob Armbruster, Lighting Director Tony Azzolino. And now our thanks to station WEWS-TV Cleveland for today's television pickup. This is Chris Schenkel saying so long from Akron, Ohio for Billy Whaley and myself. Today's tournament on the 1965 Pro Bowlers Tour was brought to you by the Consolidated Cigar Corporation, makers of Muriel, the light cigar for thoughtful modern smokers, and by Firestone, symbol of quality and service. And now stay tuned for ABC's Wide World of Sports, today featuring the National AAU Men's Indoor Swimming and Diving Championships, the ascent of Mount Kennedy with Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and a look at the fabulous new Dome Stadium in Houston, Texas.
Tonight only, the Hollywood Palace will be seen 2 hours earlier at 7:30, 6:30 Central Time. Be on hand for music and fun with Jimmy Durante, Jack Carter, and Liberace tonight on ABC.